Letter to the church of Thyatira, verse 18. And to the angel of the church in Thyatira, write the words of the Son of God, who has eyes like a flame of fire, and whose feet are like burnished bronze. Again, we're getting into a lot of symbolic language. It's always difficult to tell what it means. I always have to sort of shake my head or chuckle when I hear people saying that they have definitively interpreted what some of these things mean. And then, of course, they're proven definitively wrong, depending on the scope of their predictions, and then you have to go back to the drawing board. It was just a couple of years, about 20 years ago when I was in graduate school, there was no Catholic radio where I was, and I used to listen to this one guy. Well, I forgot his name, but just a few years ago, 3 years ago or so, he got in big trouble because he predicted the end of the world. And he closed up shop, signed off his radio show, and went home and closed the doors and everything, and just laid down on his bed and woke up the next day. It wasn't quite the end of the world, and there was this front yard was flooded with TV cameras, and they were saying, well, what happened? And he was just stunned. He just had that deer in the headlights look. I don't know. I calculated this, and I figured out that.
Was he a person?
What's that?
I imagine. Was he a person?
Yes. And he was just flabbergasted that the world wasn't over. Now,
I would be ecstatic that the world wasn't over.
Right, but the problem is this. If you base your theology on things like that, then in effect you've created a religion that is completely undone by one of your prophecies being proven wrong. So I don't know where he is today. I don't know if he still has a radio show or what. This was not too long ago, maybe 2, 3, the most 5 years ago.
I think it was 2012 actually.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
But it's happened so many times.
It happens so many times.
Groups of people, single people. Now,
it is, what do you want to say, I guess, reasonable to say, things are getting worse. We're getting closer to, it seems like we're getting closer to the sort of events that are described in the book of Revelation. So, but really to pin it down, in the Gospels, I believe it's in Matthew, where Jesus says, only the Father knows. Only the Father knows.
Right.
Well, if Jesus says only the Father knows, and he has some words to the effect of, it's not for you to know.
But doesn't he also say, know when it's here at the door?
Know the signs of the times. Right.
Know when it's at the door.
Yes. And so then you have to ask yourself, why do we need to know? Right?
Why did he want us to?
Exactly. Why did he want us to know? And really, the reason why he wants us to know when the end is near is so that we're prepared. And he gave us the parables of the 10 virgins, the 5 foolish and the 5 wise, etc., etc. The whole idea, and he says, keep watch, right? Be vigilant, be ready for the end. And he says the end comes like a thief in the night.
And the end is near for all of us.
Exactly.
No
Right. So the reason why he keeps talking about the end, well, the things. First of all, whenever he talks about the end, he always says, be ready, right? And he's never too particular, as he says, this is only knowledge of God that is not going to be passed on from God to us. So therefore, we must be ready at all times. And I remember having conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses who would predict the end of the world, and I remember kind of reducing it to this with them. I said, look, if the end of the world is at, 1:15, what should I be doing right now?
On your knees.
On your knees.
I should be repenting of my sins and living in the most holy way possible for the next 24 minutes, right? If the end of the world is 1,000,000 years from now, what should I be doing right now?
Still the same thing. Right?
Same thing. It doesn't really matter when the end is. We should be ready, whether it's 24 minutes from now or 24 years from now or 24,000 years from now. We
That's
should be doing
individually too.
exactly. We should be saints.
Now, what is this Faustina talking about when she said that he said, first I come as King of mercy, then I come as just judge.
Yeah.
But first I'm giving you the time of mercy.
Right. So at the end, there will be a judgment, which is what the Bible has been talking about
He's
forever.
not talking about judging us before we die.
It's just like St. Peter says in one of his letters. He says, look, you're all talking about when's he coming, why is he taking so long? He says, it's because he's giving you a break. I'm paraphrasing. He says, consider it forbearance. In other words, you don't want him to come now, because if he comes now, you're in big trouble, is what he's saying.
That's always going to be, though.
Exactly. He's holding off to give you a chance to get your act together. That's what St. Peter says. So look at that for the world at large. We've all got a chance to get our act together, to live that life of holiness. That's why he's not here yet, because he's being merciful. When he comes, it will be a time of justice. It's judgment. That's what the Bible says. So, as long as you're breathing...
Excuse me, there was a religious show I was watching the other day, I can't remember, it was on EWTN, but they were talking about that very question. And they were talking about the difference in cultures between now and like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And the guy said, you know, if you went up to a college student today and you said, look, you've got an hour to live, what are you going to do? 90% of them would say, well, I'm going to get a woman.
Yeah.
I'm going to go drinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to go gambling.
Party.
I'm going to do all this bucket list stuff.
Yeah, right.
50 years ago, people would say, like, oh, I'm going to go to church.
I'm going to run to the church.
I'm
And,
going to go to
yeah,
confession.
exactly.
So it's interesting
Yes.
the way the culture has changed today.
Right,
You know?
right. Yeah, I guess, I mean, there are a lot of ways to answer that question, but, we used to hear the phrase something like,